Geek Out! Hey, welcome to another installment Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Chris.
Oh, wow, squared.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. Well, you know who isn't a square?
Who?
Becky Cloonan.
No.
In fact, she's here this week to talk about her Image Comics anthology, By Chance or Providence, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, July 26th. She's also here to talk about her other Image Comics series, Southern Cross. Second volume is out today, Wednesday, July 19th. So get on that. That collects the issues 7 through 12. We also talk about her work with the Punisher. We talk about a lot.
She has a lot that she's working on.
She is
Busy woman.
Yes.
Definitely. And you know what? Let's let her talk about it. And joining us this week, we have Becky Cloonan. You may have, read her work with Gotham Academy. You may have read her work with The Punisher. You may have read her work with her Image Comics series, Southern Cross with Andy Bellinger. She's here to also talk about her Image Comics anthology, By Chance or Providence, which collects a trilogy of, how would you put it, Jake? Dark fantasy romance?
Yes, and the fact that werewolves are involved, and that's like my favorite thing in the world.
Okay, fair enough. All right, yes. But they do show up.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess it's kind of like in the Wuthering Heights tradition, plus werewolves. Anyway, Becky, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, how did this anthology come about, and just the general idea of putting like a werewolf tale with an Arthurian legend tale and a kind of, it's almost like Brandy with that third story, except one of them's like a ghost. Mm-hmm. But yeah, how did this all kind of come about?
Well, I was kind of just, I don't want to say I was sitting around because I wasn't, but I had this story in my mind of like a werewolf type of thing that I ended up doing for an anthology that was published in Japan. With a bunch of friends of mine went over to Japan. We did a convention there called Comitia, and we wanted to get a book published there. So we printed it in Japan and sold it there. And then when I got home, I was like, well, I kind of want to revisit this story and the characters and kind of like brush it up a little bit and, maybe put it out as a mini comic. Because it was right before Killjoys had come out, and I was just waiting on the first script. So I had been doing like a bunch of licensed work in the meantime and like a bunch of short stories and like illustration stuff just to kind of fill the time. So I put that book out, and then the following year I was like, well, I've got another story. I'll do another one. And then the following year came again, and I was like, well, now I have to do 3 because it's like a magic number, like everything happens in 3s. Mm-hmm. So it's just to kind of fulfill the prophecy, I suppose.
What was it about kind of centering it all on these fantasy love stories gone wrong? Because there is that if there's one through line, well, I guess other than, fantasy and the supernatural itself, that's the romance, the tragic romance to it really is it.
Maybe it's just like autobiographical. I don't know. I feel like if left to my own devices, that's probably mostly what I would do. Like just like crappy romance stories,
Was it kind of influenced by stuff like Wuthering Heights or, Bronte, Jane Eyre?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. A lot of Jane Eyre, a lot of Wuthering Heights. I think, of course, just fantasy novels in general and a love of Arthurian literature and, the Poetic Edda in like Norse mythology, stuff like that, where it's just kind of like a little kind of dark. And I like folklore and mythology a lot, but sometimes I find that the stories are really like it's hard to grasp onto like character stuff because it's more about like learning a lesson or it's just all these gods, and it's hard to personify them as real people because they existed to like represent something instead of just being a real person. So I think I like to take the idea of like a folklore or a legend and kind of bring it down to earth a little bit and tell these stories as if they were about real people.
Well, I also think a lot of people forget that like King Arthur does not have a happy ending, and neither does like Robin Hood. They both go out like pretty hard. They don't like go peacefully in their sleep. Surrounded by
it all starts out like well enough with good intentions,
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the best sword ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I guess it's like Naruto, I guess, in the classic.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's the thing, like a lot of Japanese, manga, anime.
Yeah.
We're in the
Anime.
Onomatopoeia. A lot of those have a very kind of tragic I mean, Full Metal Alchemist breaks your heart multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they all start out like it's just fun and games. Like, hey guys, I'm gonna be the best ninja in the world. Mm-hmm. And then like, you know, a year later you're just crying about Sasuke or whatever. Mm-hmm.
There is kind of now that I'm thinking about it, there is kind of a manga anime influence in a lot of your work, both as an artist and as a writer. Do you have any favorites from Japan?
Oh yeah, it's hard to keep up with now, just because they're so long. I think my favorite manga right now is probably anything by Kaoru Mori. She did like A Bride's Tale and Emma. And Emma is probably one of my favorite comics, just hands down. It's just gorgeous. It's like reading a Jane Austen novel, it's not really like Emma, the Jane Austen novel, but, in that kind of vein. So, of course, it's like appeals to me. Everything she does is just incredible. But I grew up reading, besides like all the Jim Lee X-Men that I read when I was a kid and all the Claremont stuff, it was like Rumiko Takahashi's Ram No One Half. That got me like hooked. And I guess from there it just like spiraled out of control.
Yeah. That was the gateway drug. I think for what would you say it was for you guys? For me, I think it was probably Dragon Ball Z and like Trigun.
I mean, like I worked at a comic shop and
Lone Wolf for you.
Yeah, but I mean, Full Metal Alchemist like blew my face off. And then the one that I've been like reading like crazy it's kind of like huge, but I mean I think it's one of those ones that kind of hits you in the gut out of nowhere is One Punch Man, because that exactly, I guess, yeah. But that just takes everything I love and kind of turns it on its ear, but then it also has these really kind of sweet moments, and but yeah, I'm definitely more of a like latecomer to the manga stuff.
For me too, it was Dragon Ball Z. Nice. It was right. One of the first big things that Cartoon Network picked up, and it was right in perfect time for me to be like, cartoons with fighting. And then, oddly enough, it was also kind of the death of my love of anime because it just took so long.
Why is he still fighting Frieza?
Yeah, it's been 5 years.
That's why you got to watch the movies. The Frieza saga happens in like a second.
or I recently picked up Dragon Ball Z Kai, and it blew through the first 100 episodes. You're already done with the Cell saga, whereas like it took them 60 episodes just to get to Namek in the original.
You had cited before we had started the interview, you had cited doing Mondo work at last year's San Diego. If I remember correctly, it was for Castlevania 3.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually right now tonight. I'm working on the Symphony of the Night artwork, so that's. Yeah, I'm so stoked. It's so difficult. I've restarted this one picture like 4 or 5 times because it's just not like it has to be perfect.
Is that your is Symphony of the Night and the Adventures of all? I guess he's in Dracula. He's in Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
You turn to the Jeff Bridges at the end there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do that when I get excited. Yeah. The Chinaman isn't the issue, Walter. Or whatever other lines I can. Chinaman isn't the preferred nomenclature, dude. Anyway, and whatever lines from Big Lebowski. Anywho, so is Symphony of the Night got carried away? Your favorite installment of the Castlevania series?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think. I mean, I've played most of them, but this one's classic, and I probably replay it like once a year.
Would you say that kind of, because there is that dark fantasy element in both Castlevania and, I mean, straight up, The Mire is basically a Castlevania story it's got supernatural, like, ghosts, but all you need is, like...
Well, so does Castlevania.
That's fair. Yes.
Yeah. Just need some vampires, I guess. I love Castlevania. I don't know. It's just the imagery, I don't know. It's just roses and bats and castles and upside-down castles. I don't know.
Have you had a chance to see the Netflix series?
I just finished it last night. I was watching like one episode a night because I felt bad about binging it. I was like, I just want it to last.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who does.
I had a lot of fun with that. I thought it was great.
I haven't. I know Warren Ellis wrote it, but I haven't had a chance to get it going. I'm trying to remember who does the artwork, that beautiful kind of painted artwork for Symphony of the Night, though. It was.
Oh, I can't remember her name. She did a whole comic based on it. We should put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I will put it in the note. I know it was Igarashi directed it, and then because it was originally supposed to be a side story because it doesn't focus on a Belmont, your Alucard for the entire game.
Yeah, which, I mean, that blew my mind when I found out Alucard is just Dracula backwards. I don't know, spoiler, but like, whoa. I just found that out like a few years ago too. I was like, oh my god.
It's just slightly less clever than Dr. Acula from Scrubs.
Yeah. Dr. Acula, perfect.
And
I love it.
For the listeners at home, it's Ayami Kojima.
Oh yes.
Yes. But yeah, excellent. When it comes to your other Image comic series, I mean, you kind of to change gears, you kind of go full tilt boogie on the science fiction with Southern Cross. I feel like that first arc, you've kind of got like an alien black hole Event Horizon vibe, and with like arc 2, you've kind of got, if arc 1 is alien, arc 2 is aliens. Was that something that was that kind of escalation in scope and violence always something that you and Andy had planned from the beginning?
Yeah, we wanted it to kind of go. It's the third volume. The third volume that we're working on right now is absolutely bonkers. But when we originally thought of the story, it was only issues 1 to 6, and we knew we wanted to do an ongoing. And Eric, he was like, "You guys should do an ongoing," and I was like, "Well, Andy and I had just broken up, so it wasn't like super awkward. Like there was hurt feelings, but it wasn't anything that's like too crazy." And right after that, he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this comic with me? I want to do like a sci-fi horror. Do you want to write it?" And I was like, "Okay, let's try it." And because I didn't know if it would work or not, I was like, let's just do 6 issues. And then if we hate each other by the end of it, we can just call it quits, just because that's kind of the adult thing to do. Instead of just leaving the book kind of in limbo.
Sure.
So the first 6 issues wrapped up and we were like, well, it's going great. Let's do a few more and like kind of change gears a little bit. We wanted to try some new characters and expand the world because Andy had built this whole crazy world around it. It's like, I technically write it, but a lot of the ideas come from Andy. Like we brainstorm all the time and we'll, have R&D sessions, and he's the one who came to me with the idea and the characters. And I was like, well, I guess I could, make it into a murder mystery or something.
Well, Southern Cross, I mean, Gotham Academy, it's you get to play in the Gotham City sandbox. Punisher is like awesome. It's like brutal as hell.
Thank you. We're just having fun with that now.
I mean, we'll get to the Punisher, but Southern Cross is probably the most, and I mean this in the best possible way, is probably the most like out there book that I of yours that I've read. There's kind of, again, you're combining horror with psychedelic sci-fi. How is it to kind of get in that headspace as a writer?
It's a bit weird because it's we want it to be really bizarre and violent and psychological, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's got to kind of make sense a little bit. And I like things that are open-ended enough that you can kind of make your own ending, but I like it to be satisfying in the idea that like you point the readers to a direction, so you're not completely frustrated and like off in the woods alone. And Southern Cross is a bit like that. It's like a weird line to walk, and working with Andy is hilarious because he's always he's just blowing it out of the water, his art on this. And we've worked together for so long that I can just write a page and I can pretty much guess how he's going to compose it because of just what I know of his storytelling. And we have, despite having like different styles, I think we have a similar, the way that we compose a page is a bit similar and like our instinct for storytelling. But every once in a while he throws in these crazy like double page spreads or like, the Where's Waldo kind of thing where you're following the characters through this maze of the ship. It's absolutely insane. So half of it is me writing the book and the other half is me rewriting it once I get the pages back.
I have as an aside, there's a ship in the second volume called the Chernobog.
Oh yeah.
Is that a reference to like OG Fantasia?
Yeah, actually it is, because I was working on the Fantasia poster when I had to think of a name for the ship.
Well,
and I'll just
Chernobog
text
is fair
Andy
play.
I'm like, I need a name for the ship, and then we'll go back and forth and just throw names out there. Like, we need a name for the space gang, and just, so we've got lists of names of like space gangs and space drugs and spaceships. It's pretty fun.
I mean, that's probably what's that? Night on Bald Mountain is probably my favorite from OG Fantasia. Probably Fantasia 2002. Now that I think it's like, what's better in Fantasia 2000 than Fantasia Prime? The Donald Duck.
I don't even remember anything from Fantasia 2000, actually.
Donald Duck is Noah. He has an arc.
Oh, man.
It's set to pomp and circumstance. He finds Daisy at the end. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think. Oh, no, the dinosaurs get fucked. Oh. That happens, too.
Wasn't that in the first one, though?
Was that in the first one?
Yeah, I think it was. Was it Stravinsky? The Rites of Spring? It was. That was it.
Right before the Night on Bald Mountain. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
I am just like striking out left, right, and center.
But you know what? At least you got the Fantasia thread. Though.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think that trumps any of the negatives that you got.
I don't know. Double negative, dude. we're still in the red. But the yeah. Well,
see what you did there.
Yeah. Well, that's cool though. Yeah, because again, Southern Cross. I mean, there is. I mean, any idea when Volume 3, when issue 13 hits?
Issue 13. Ooh, I don't know. I feel like I should know this, and I don't off the top of my head. Can I put that in the notes too?
Sure. Yeah.
Man, I'm striking out too. This is strike 2 for me.
It's a long night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a long night. I've got a lot of books out this month. Let's just do this month, and then we can figure it out. Andy's currently working on the 13th issue. We're wrapping that one up.
Cool.
And then I think the third volume, I feel like we slated it for February or March of 2018.
Just in time for Emerald
And that'll
City.
kind of wrap it up.
Oh, it's. I guess. I mean, without giving the game away, we're starting to see the threads in Arc 1 and 2 by the end of Arc 2 start to converge, and I assume we get into the mystery of the artifacts and of Southern Cross, which again is like very, very Event Horizon, very like Black Hole, where they just kind of everybody forgets that Black Hole's a Disney movie, and 2, that movie ends with them going to heaven and hell. Which is
it's pretty nuts.
Yeah. So I guess So was it always only slated for I guess that 15 issue or 16, 18? God, math. 18 issue run.
Yeah, we kind of always planned it as a trilogy. And the other thing too is like I don't want to monopolize Andy's time because as a writer I can write now I'm a writer. As a writer, I can do multiple projects at a time. And Andy's stuck on this one. Not to say that he's stuck, but it's good for him to get out and work on a few different projects and get his name in front of other people,
Diversify the portfolio and all that jazz.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just smart. You don't want to be stuck on one book. I mean, if we had a movie deal or if it was selling like gangbusters, that would be something else. If it was like Walking Dead famous, then he'd probably want to stick on it. But, right now it's like, we got okay sales and it's doing good, but it doesn't make sense to keep at it. This is a book that we can jump back into at any point. So he's going to take a break after this and go on to some other things. And, if we ever want to come back to it, it's always there. But we're going to wrap it up so that it has like a satisfying conclusion.
Again, 3 is the magic number.
It is the magic number. I do like 5-part trilogies too, but I feel like, quit while we're ahead.
There's certain characters that we've talked to all different kinds of writers and artists, and there's certain characters that I'm fascinated by what it's like to get into their headspace, and Frank Castle is definitely one of those characters because I think, he's something where I feel like he's, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like I feel like he's very simple in the idea that like one, for the most part his costume is literally black and white, like his ideology, his morals. And I think the best stories of Frank Castle come from like a really simple place. An example is, this is me totally sucking up, by the way, because issue 13.
That's what we do.
Yeah, and I am not just saying this just because you're on, because Sam has heard me talk about this issue like a lot since it's come out. But I have this like list that I have, and it's kind of hard to explain. But I have this like those I guess they got like fire extinguishers or whatever, in like buildings, and it says break glass in case of fire, and then they get the fire, or the axe or whatever.
Yeah.
I had this like little thing that I've created, like a list of books. It's like break glass if lose faith in comics, like this little list I have, just kind of as like a joke. Not if I really lose faith in comics, but if I'm like,
Though we break that glass often.
we do. But like if I'm like, oh man, I really want to just read a great fucking comic book, and there's all different kinds of stuff on there. Issue 13, to quote Chris Jericho, you just made the list with issue 13 because like I love how wonderfully like simple of a story that is for Frank, where it's him just getting his gun back, and like the way he interacts with like basically the 3 to 4 different characters throughout the story. And there's a great shot in that issue where Frank, simple man, like he has all the time in the world, where he climbs up like a billboard and sits there, and you just get this great shot of like it's day and it's night and it's day, like he's on the prowl. But yeah, issue 13 is one of those books that or one of those issues that I will refer to in the future in case I am ever like having a lose faith in comics type of day, just to let you know. But
oh man, I appreciate that.
I am very curious though, like just how you came about with the Punisher and what it's like to get into the mad mind of Frank Castle.
It was actually really difficult at first. He's not a character that invites you in. He's a character that'll really push you away. He's just very closed off, and you can read, as much Punisher Max as you want, or like you go back to Punisher War Journal, which is also a classic, and I love it, but it's still hard for me to get into that mindset. But then I started thinking of him more as Jason Voorhees, instead of him killing teenagers, he kind of kills bad guys.
Yeah.
And that flipped the switch. I was like, okay, now I get it. He's just this killing machine. Mm-hmm. And once you kind of realize he's not a superhero in the sense that he wants to like, I'm here to save New York, or I'm going to save the world. No, he just wants to kill bad guys. Like, he doesn't want to save anybody or anything. He will if he needs to, if there's somebody that needs saving, he'll do it. But that's not his priority. And I think figuring that out for me was what helped define the character that I wanted to write. And then the first 12 issues happened, I was like, I really just want to take his guns away because he relies on them. And I mean, I thought it would just be fun if he could just use some bear traps or some axes and, bike chains, the classics.
Yeah. The bear trap was definitely one of my favorite kills. Speaking of like the Jason Voorhees type thing.
Oh, that was fun.
He just rips the guy's face off.
I don't think Matt Horak was very happy with me about that. He was like, do you know how hard it is to draw a bear trap? And I was like, no. Question mark.
Oh, that's great. No, that was awesome.
I didn't think about it. He picked up the torch, though, from Steve Dillon when he passed away. It was hard. It was like, how are we going to fill these shoes? And Matt stepped in and just picked up right where he left off. He had no... I think if I was in that position, I'd have a lot of stage fright. I don't know if Matt did or not, but he just came in and just started tearing it up. So we've been really lucky on that book.
No, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that because like I've just been reading a lot of Punisher lately, and it's funny because I feel like every person who's tackled Frank Castle has to convince themselves, like in their own way, what Frank Castle means to them. And I guess you could say that about any character. But, like reading the Max stuff, Garth Ennis, did a similar thing where he was like, no superhero outfit. And again, he's out to kill bad guys, not save the world kind of thing. And so, yeah, and I definitely see the Jason Voorhees thing. Because again, it's like, just because there's not a gun around, he will use a bear trap, or he will stick a guy's face to the ice and rip it off as the guy's screaming.
Yeah, that was fun. I also, right while we're talking about this, I wanted to give a shout out to Chris Anka, who drew issue 13 that you were raving about. Yes. He did this incredible job where he just took the Jason Voorhees thing and ran with it. And Punisher's almost always in the shadow. Yes. You barely see his face. It's super creepy. I love it.
That one of my favorite things that he did in that book, in that particular issue, is one. There's a great shot of him drinking from like the was it Nelson and Murdoch cup. And
that cup makes another appearance too. It was quite a hit.
And the thing that I like is where he goes to scare the kid is like, again, his face is in shadow and he's got the jacket on and the jacket is closed. And like all throughout the book, the jacket starts to open more and you see a little bit more of his face. And by the end, you get this, of course, the great Punisher skull, and it's just I like it because it's just a great little story of Frank Castle coming back from quote unquote vacation, which means killing a lot of people. Reviewing, the idea of him sitting there drinking from his Nelson and Murdoch cup, watching security footage of this little punk kid stealing his gun, and he's like, I hate vacations or whatever, and then him going to scare this kid. And again, in classic Punisher, he's like, get a job, stay in school, which is, it's just great. And I love those little touches too that you have with Frank, in the first arc where he's dealing with a little girl. And like, I love where he does that, where he's always protecting the innocents from violence, close your eyes, don't come out till I tell you, even though he's the big bad Punisher. And that thing where she's talking about dinosaurs. And I remember I sent Sam the panel because I thought it was just such a wonderful little thing where she's like, do you like dinosaurs? And he's like, yeah. He is the big scary Punisher, but like, I love those little quiet moments where he interacts with somebody, like a daughter type figure for him. And, how painful that would be, but also how he still, does it well.
I think there's like a passing reference during the Ennis run where he's like, where he has Frank Castle basically go like, I watch Shark Week.
Oh yeah. He's like, I watch Shark Week like everybody else. And he's like, I know that sharks don't like the taste of human flesh. And he's like, knowing my luck, I have the one fucking shark that's never watched Shark Week. And bites off the criminal's legs.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, just I blew through through your Punisher stuff. I look forward to the next issue, and you're just doing a totally kick-ass amazing job on the Punisher. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. That's probably one of the biggest challenges I've had lately is the Punisher. Yeah. So it's nice to hear that. Absolutely. I feel like I had some big shoes to fill.
You had mentioned the Killjoys earlier when you were first conceiving by chance or Providence. I got to know. What was it like working with Gerard Way?
He's super easy to work with. And, there's Sean Simon was also co-writing with him. So, we had a lot of good ideas coming in for that book. It was really weird because we had started it so long ago, and it was originally something that Gerard and Sean had thought of while they were on tour together. And, they came to me with this idea, and we all just started brainstorming ideas. And one thing led to another. I did all this concept art for it, and then it just kind of like stalled. Sometimes you work on a project and it just like there's no real date on it, and everyone's kind of working, and then it just kind of somehow it just stops. And then Gerard called me up one day, and he's like, "Hey, we're working on the new album, and we were thinking of doing it as like a Killjoys like concept album." And I was like, cool, that's awesome, let's do that, run with that. There's enough ideas there for sure. And then the album happened, and then 3 music videos happened, and then we were like, okay, let's go back to the comic. But the comic's already been done, as these albums. So now it was like, well, what is the new Killjoys comic? So it was like a comic that was based on music videos, that was based on an album, that was based on the comic. Completely backwards. I don't recommend anybody trying to do that.
I think you clipped out. Yeah. Okay. We're back. Okay.
Oh, did I? Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Here we are.
Yeah, we're still there.
I think we got the end of your statement, and then it just kind of died.
Yeah.
And then now it's back.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, no. Now it's back.
Yeah.
Do I need to...
No.
I think it dropped out at the perfect moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you had like a whole like backstory about like how like Grant Morrison descended from the heavens, which I could see happening.
Those videos in the album, in the book, all that's great stuff. That's why I got my gamer tag for my Xbox account is Killjoy55.
And now everybody listening can friend.
Everybody can friend and play Overwatch with me.
I'm still looking for a partner on Lego Star Wars, Chief.
Well, we had it going for a while, but now we don't live in the same house anymore, so
yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to fight those adventures.
Yeah, the trials of adulthood.
Yes.
Getting your own place, and it's like, but who's going to play Mario Kart with me?
How are we going to 100% beat Lego Batman? We did that, actually. No, we did do that, actually. It's Star Wars. Yeah,
Star Wars is our white whale.
Yes.
Yeah. and I bore all my rage upon that white hump. Does that doesn't age well, Herman Melville?
No.
Okay, right. So, I mean, the other thing that you've got going on is Gotham Academy over across. We've talked Image, we've talked Marvel. I feel like Gotham Academy's the second semester is coming to a close. How does it feel to wrap that up with Carl and Brendan?
That's pretty bittersweet, I think the great thing about it is that we got to tell the entire story just like how we wanted to tell it. So this is, it's exactly what we had pitched. When DC came to me and they were like, "Do you want to pitch something to us?" And I was like, "Sure. How about Gotham Academy?" It's like Harry Potter meets Batman.
With shades of the supernatural, of course.
Yeah, the shades of the supernatural. It's very much like a love letter to the animated series as well. And there's a lot of deep cuts. It's the kind of book that you could give to a total Batman nerd and they would geek out over it. And you could also give it to your, 12-year-old niece and she would also love it, not knowing anything else about comics. This was the first thing that she ever read. So it's kind of a nice, I feel like it's a good gateway into comics, especially like the DC universe and into Gotham.
Well, especially, not just Gotham and not just DC, but comics I feel like had gotten so age prohibitive, like they weren't all age friendly. So was it really important to make an all age friendly book?
Yeah, definitely. There's some incredible all ages books and young adult books coming out, but a lot of them are at book publishers, and you're not seeing them in like the monthly direct market stuff. Like there's Marvel, I think, does a little bit better than DC did, or has done. I don't know why, but we really tried to make it young adult. And I think for me, especially growing up and remembering like the first comics that I ever got and the first comics that I ever read and what that felt like to get into. And now here I am. It's, I feel like if I could make that comic for a young girl and have her grow up to make comics because of something that I made, that's like the ultimate pay it forward,
Again, it's we had Grace Ellis and Shea Beagle on. They were talking Moonstruck a couple weeks ago, and there was kind of at some point comics stopped being for the age of readers that they were initially created for, at least by and large. And I feel like it's a growing need, and I definitely feel that Gotham Academy scratches that itch, and I feel like those trades will always be on the stands, but I think that there's kind of that leaves a bit of a hole in the publishing line that hopefully someone will fill. Well,
Gotham Academy is coming to an end with second semester pretty soon, and there's no plans right now to continue it. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to. It's just a matter of the same thing where the sad thing is that because it's, more of a young adult title and kids are mostly picking it up as trades, our trade sales are really good, but the monthly sales aren't so good. So it doesn't really make sense to continue doing it as a monthly book, which is kind of sad, but that's just the truth of it. It's just where our market's at right now. And kids are buying more graphic novels. Their parents are more likely to take them into a bookstore than a comic store. And that's just that. It's, I guess it's bad, but it is what it is. So maybe we'll see another incarnation of Gotham Academy, but in trades only. We're
maybe like
kind of just
style.
Figuring it out.
Sure. Yeah.
And this was kind of the perfect place to do it because we ended Olive's story,
Yeah. I'm not to mention, I think if there's a through line through this entire interview, it's that you've got a lot of stuff going on these
seriously.
days, Becky.
Everything's ending now.
That's fair. What? Well, okay. Well, I guess By Chance or Providence is a standalone that's been done in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Though you've got this one is, what I love about this is chock full of extras too. And did you really see a guy on the subway that looked like the dude from Wolves?
Yes, I'm not even kidding. It was insane. Because I'm obsessed with this character. I was like, oh my God, is the man made flesh?
I drew you.
Oh, it's super creepy. I'm just the worst, It just felt like, what am I doing?
that was so great. Yeah, the sketches and the concept art in the back, and that little sketch panel that you made of that was just hilarious.
Yeah, it's like when Alan Moore met Constantine like twice.
Yeah.
So the legend goes.
So the legend goes.
And then I guess you're in between arcs on Southern Cross. How? What are the long-term plans for the Punisher?
We're working on that right now. I don't know if Marvel's made any announcement. I don't want to say anything because I don't know if they've said anything. But there is a plan there, but it's not a long-term one. So I was actually, when we started off, I had only written, like, my pitch was for 12. I was like, well, I'll just do 12, but that's cool, guys. How long can you write the Punisher for? I mean, I guess we'll see.
I guess what, Punisher Max is 60 issues?
That's Garth Ennis, though.
That's
this
true.
is me. I just want to write sad romance comics.
Sad romance.
Unless
Punisher.
the Punisher can fall in love and it's tragic, then
Well,
I guess Punisher is a sad romance. Yeah,
Punisher is a pretty sad romance, but that's all right. I mean, everyone knows that story. That was one of the things that when we started it was like, well, let's not do the origin story. Everybody's done the origin story. Yeah. Let's just jump in and like hit the ground running.
You definitely do that. I also love that, like, the first issue, I don't think he says a word. He just dispenses the best kind of
with extreme
extreme
I think his first word was like smoke meat sandwich in issue 2.
I always love that, like the idea of like Frank, like being Frank Castle would just be like a nightmare because you're just being shot at and set. But I also like the idea of like just going to the local diner and getting a sandwich, watching TV. But then you have to also be the Punisher, which would be like...
Well, it's the first issue of War Journal where he just gets a sub, a kite, and goes to Central Park and just eats a sub. And I mean, people die. That's not all he does, but that's his day.
Yeah, he's fascinating.
Yeah. I think he has a very mundane life outside of his, the shooting that he does.
One of my favorite covers of War Journal is he's mowing the Punisher skull into his front yard.
That's so good.
He's so like inadvertently hilarious by how like bored he seems sometimes.
Well, and Steve would always like looking at his work with you or with Garth. The Punisher would almost look a little bored. Like he's like, hey, well, business as usual. Like as he like kills like scores of people.
Yeah.
Like, been there, done that.
Yeah. No, that's
Now,
it's perfect.
You were mentioning you were doing a Symphony of the Night. Is it for another Mondo album?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's for the soundtrack, which is the best soundtrack of any video game ever. And you can at me. I will. It's so good. And then I think we're doing a poster of it too. So I've got to do the square artwork and then have it fit a poster as well. So that's fun. It's giving me a lot of problems. I'm kind of wrangling this one.
It's between, for me, the debate is always Symphony of the Night or Super 4, because I was a Super Nintendo kid growing up.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to, like, Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis until years and years later, but those two, I mean, my God. I'm a huge cat. I haven't started the Netflix series yet. I haven't had the time, so I will. It's only, what, 4 episodes?
Yeah, it's only 4 episodes, and they're pretty short. They're not that long. Yeah, it's fun. It took me like an episode to get into because honestly, I just wanted Dracula and Lisa romance story, like the tragic romance of Dracula and Lisa, and it's very Warren Ellis. What you get is very true to his voice, and it just wasn't that romantic.
I'm trying to think who the most like doomed romance in Marvel and DC is, and I remember you had done some issues of like Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing's got a pretty tragic romance element there too.
Oh my God, I know, I love it. It's just my heart.
Hawkman has a pretty doomed romance.
Oh yeah, they die all the time
because it's like as soon as she realizes she loves them, they're doomed to die and start over. So Hawkman's always like, I love you, and she's like, shut up. And then once it like gets to that point, it's
that's how like Blackest Night starts, you know, where they're like each other, and then they get like totally fucked by Elongated Man. Yeah, the doomed romance in comics. Spoilers.
Rogan Gambit.
Rogan Gambit. That's
Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers. That was a little weird.
Well, and was it Claremont that said, like, Claremont went as far to say that completely, like, vilified Scott because...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because originally Madeline Pryor was just supposed to be somebody that happened to look a lot like Jean Grey. And so
she was a clone.
Yeah, she turned, like, when they brought back Jean Grey, they're like, okay, now we'll write out Madeline Pryor. And because initially he leaves, like, pregnant Madeline Pryor. And then
for Jean Grey, newly resurrected Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so unfair. Don't even get me started.
That's a bit of a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
That leads me to I suppose my closing question. You know, something we ask everybody that comes on the show. What are you currently geeking out over?
Besides the new Castlevania that I'll probably rewatch tonight. Oh man, that's hard. I don't have too much time to geek out over stuff lately. Just pretty. I just binge watching Netflix while I draw at night.
Catch any flicks at the local cinema? Any music that you listen to?
I am going to watch Spider-Man tomorrow, so no spoilers.
Sweet.
Yeah. I've been trying to go see movies more, so that's been nice. But yeah, I don't know. I'm blanking right now just because it's been that kind of a day.
Sure.
But I've been so I just started reading the Witcher saga.
Oh my god, yeah. Have you played the games?
I played like the first 30 minutes of Witcher 3 and I just don't have time to play video games. So I was like, I guess I'll just read the books, which are incredible.
Yeah. Apparently that's getting a Netflix series too.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
yeah.
They wanted to make it their own Game of Thrones, so they got the rights to The Witcher.
It's amazing. It's so good. I read the third book years ago because that was the only one I could get a hold of. Originally, it was published. It's a Polish novel, and it was translated into English, but you could only get it in the UK. So when I was over there a few years ago, I picked the third book up and read that. But now I'm starting over at book 1 now that they're like readily available and at my fingertips.
I suppose.
So that's good.
Yeah. I suppose if there's ever a dark, tragic romance fantasy, The Witcher would fit that wheelhouse pretty hard.
I can't even, like I'm so easy to peg, but like I kind of don't care. It's just like, that's what I'm into.
Well, not to get my nose too brown, but you, again, with By Chance or Providence, you really do, in those 3 shorts, you knock it out of the park. I mean, it really is a love letter to the genre, and each of them has their own kind of quirks and nuances to them, and I think people are going to dig it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited that it's out through Image, so now it's got like a paperback release that everyone can read. I've got so many other stories like in that world also, so hopefully, maybe in a few years I'll have time to actually just sit down and do more of those, because that's kind of where I was happiest with my career, I think. Was self-publishing, ironically.
Is that the kind of the biggest obstacle, just that being, again, with so many projects on the plate, carving out that time to do the self-published stuff? Yeah,
it's mostly the time stuff, and also, at the time when I had started doing them, my career wasn't at the point where it was now, so trying to get somebody to publish it, and I had asked Dark Horse if they wanted it, and they were like, no. So, that's part of why I just did it on my own. But it opened up, doing that at the time was perfect because my career was at a point where people recognized my name. And I started, selling them wholesale to comic stores, and it put me in touch with a lot of different people on many different levels of the industry, and learning about like how comics are distributed and how to get my self-published books into stores was a huge thing, and I made a lot of really good friends doing it, and I don't know, I feel like it was definitely worth doing, even though it took a lot of effort.
I think that's just gotta get that foot in the door. I mean, again, here we are. When did the first short come out? You had mentioned it was
2011.
2011. Wow. Yeah. So
yeah, and then 112, and then 113, and then in 2014 I did a hardcover graphic novel version of it.
So it's cool seeing the trajectory and where you've progressed in the past 6 years. Because I mean, one of our buddies that we work the Image Comics booth at a lot of shows. And one of our buddies that works with us, he's actually a homicide reporter for like the city of Alexandria. Anyway, the only bit of like original comic art he has is a piece of yours.
No way.
I'm trying to. It might be from By Chance or Providence. I'll have to ask him, and have him like take a picture and like maybe I'll like put it on Twitter and like tag you in it. But
yeah, definitely. I'm curious.
Yeah, it may be from Wolves. Now that I think about it, my God, if it was from this,
that's
collection,
crazy.
that'd be like
because I barely sold any of those. I might have sold like 2 or 3 pages from that book because I can't let them go. Like they're still so close to my heart that it's hard for me to sell pages out of it.
Right. Vernon, if you're listening to this. But the yeah, but no, it's crazy to 6 years later, with Swamp Thing and everything under your belt, and now you've got the Punisher. He's got his own Netflix series. You're doing Gotham Academy, and you're doing again Southern Cross. You're like kind of doing this love letter to 80s sci-fi. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of work, so I'm excited to kind of close the chapter on a lot of these books and then maybe start something new. It's exciting.
Now, before we sign off, is there anything you else want to plug, Becky?
No, just that's it. When does this come out, before or after San Diego?
This comes out because I wanted to give it at least a week of lead time, so it'll come out on the 19th, which is the week of San Diego. Yeah. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've got a poster coming out at San Diego from Mondo, but I don't know if I can talk about it if this is going to be like before the con. I'm not sure when they're going to announce it, so I don't want to jump the gun on that.
This will come out the preview day of the con. I don't. Either way.
Yeah.
We'll link people.
Okay, cool.
We'll
Yeah,
add it to the
I
notes.
don't know. We kind of covered
Just
everything.
Tell people
I
to
think.
cover their ears during that section. if it's not supposed to.
Well, I do have a new poster coming out for Mondo, and it's not Castlevania because I'm working on that right now.
Keep an eye out.
That's right.
True believers.
We will.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Becky. And again, By Chance or Providence comes out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, July 26th, and you can get Volume 2 of Southern Cross, collecting issues 7 through 12, on Wednesday, July 19th. And keep an eye out for future issues of Gotham Academy and The Punisher. Becky, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lovely chat. Lovely
yeah.
chat.
It's,
I think you noticed something like post-interview. It's like we kind of geeked out ourselves.
we were pretty giddy because,
It's Becky Cloonan.
it's Becky Cloonan. I didn't even touch on Conan the Barbarian, and the Punisher.
Crom, damn you.
Crom, damn you to hell. But no, I mean she has an amazing career, and is just the amount.
I'm curious to see where it goes next.
I am too, and the thing I'm always so amazed by all these different artists that we talk to is how they can handle the workload and all these different stories, and her being a writer and her being an artist and doing all these different different work. It's just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And the goddamn Punisher.
Oh yeah, yeah. Fucking.
I'm sure I made that clear, freaking out hardcore during the interview. But
What? She was involved with the Punisher? I had no idea.
The skin tight costume, skull face, the teeth that are magazines.
Oh man, he's just the coolest.
He's really if you think about it, he's so on paper it's a pretty simple character, but there's just so much mileage you get out of it.
It is. I mean, like I said, he is simple, but not. I think he's not simple to tackle, but the best stories come from the simple thing. It's with the Garth Ennis stuff, reading all that, and with Becky Cloonan stuff as well. It's bad guys are really fucking bad and nasty. You want to see Frank Castle kill the fuck out of him. Frank Castle kills the fuck out of him, and that doesn't get old, And but obviously, when you throw in a talented writer, a talented artist, which Becky Cloonan has with her run, you get a great Punisher stuff.
Yeah, it is stellar.
It
is singular.
Yeah.
Primo. I think I'm going to bring that back. Primo.
Primo, I don't think Primo should. That's great. I love Primo.
And Epico.
Yeah, I mean, if it's got the ambition, the scope.
Yeah. Primo, I feel like
I'm just using that because there's wrestling tag team, the Clones, and the Primo and Epico.
Oh, how was Great Balls of Fire?
I was surprised because going into it,
stupid name aside,
yeah, and wonderful logo, cock and balls and all.
Sold.
cock little freak.
But yeah, it's going into it. I feel like there was a general, kind of like meh. Like pretty much any wrestling fans that I was talking to.
Is it SummerSlam yet?
Yeah, right. Can it be? But yeah, like it ended up being quite entertaining. You started out with a nonsense match between Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt that no one really knows really why they're feuding right now, but like it was a good match. It wasn't, I wouldn't say that it was like a pay-per-view level match, but it was like a good match to like start the show with, to kind of be like, hey guys, this is wrestling, and then like it had a really good finish, like the whole build up to this, like everyone that I've been talking to and listening to is always like, why do I care about Bray Wyatt being in a match? He loses, he just loses. He's like he's got a great promo game, but like why do I care? He never wins anything. And then he fucking beat Seth Rollins, like one of the faces of the company. He's on the cover of the 2K18, and like fucking just he loses to Bray Wyatt. He loses because Bray Wyatt stuck his thumb in his eye. It's like, so like he still kind of save Seth Rollins by doing that, but like it was still like oh okay. So like that was like I put my phone down and I started paying attention to the pay-per-view because I was like, oh, maybe I don't know where everything is going. And then there was a slew of everyone that had like a title belt up for grabs retained their belt, which part of that is fun and cool, and the other part of it is like, well, nothing new and exciting happened with the finishes. But like I enjoyed the women's match. It was Alexa Bliss, who's my girl, versus Sasha Banks, who is also my girl. So like all my girls. Yeah, so like it didn't really matter who won, but like I'm much sorry, Alexa. Sorry, my Alexa Dot came online.
I caught it too late because I saw like the blue turn. I was like, oh no.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah, I tried.
But
I failed though.
Yeah, anyway, Alexa Bliss retained her title because she snuck out of the ring and let herself get disqualified. And as every commentator will remind you incessantly, that when a champion's advantage means that any kind of disqualification, they get to keep their belt. Which I heard a couple people griping about that finish, but I was like, you know what, I didn't mind it. Like the rest of the match leading up to it was really good. And then Alexa Bliss has this like air of just being that kind of heel, that would intentionally disqualify herself just because she's like, you know what, I've exhausted my ability to actually beat this woman. I mean, they had set it up earlier, she started walking up the ramp and then Sasha Banks pulls her back in. So like, of course she would do it again, and this time she had tuckered out Sasha enough that Sasha wasn't able to grab her and pull her back in. So I was fine with it. Simon Miller didn't like it, but he's he works for What Culture, so whatever.
Oh, What Culture?
Yeah.
What Culture?
I love them.
No, they're
wonderful.
Great. That's how I keep up kind of with wrestling. Between Chris and I subscribe to their YouTube channel, What Culture Wrestling. I love their lists.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, their lists are great.
That's what got me started on it.
That's what, and then you talking about it got me started on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do like Raw and SmackDown recaps.
Yeah, I don't watch those as much because obviously I don't watch those shows, but I enjoy it.
Simon Miller is the guy that does the Raw recaps.
Okay.
And then like anytime it's like, why does this happen? Simon Miller is the one that's like, why? Here's why.
He also is he the one that also does the How I Would Have Booked It?
No, that's and
oh no, Simon.
Adam,
Simon's the big buff
he's
guy.
jacked.
Yeah.
He's actually training to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
How they should have booked it is Adam Blumpy.
Adam, he's hilarious.
Who's now because of the Adam versus Adam, he's now called Plumpy.
Nice.
Because there's also Adam Pacitti and Jack the Jobber.
Jack the Jobber.
Jack the Jobber is wonderful.
Yeah.
I love Jack the Jobber.
I will say, speaking of wrestling, I finished Glow.
Oh.
And I will say, like, I wasn't... Lukewarm is not the right word for the earlier episodes. I just thought it was fine. It was good.
Yeah.
Like, it was fine. But the last half is great
Oh,
Netflix
it's so good.
television.
How many episodes are
10.
there?
10?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, go and watch it. I think you won't, I don't know. They were just a little early on.
And I don't think you need to enjoy wrestling at all to be able to enjoy the show.
Not at all. And I rewatched...
Much like Orange is the New Black, you don't have to enjoy being in prison.
Probably not. I rewatched the Glow
Feels like it sometimes.
Yeah. I rewatched the Glow documentary.
Yeah. I should watch that.
It's interesting because the show takes obviously a lot of liberties.
Yeah, I hear that
a lot of liberties.
Yeah.
But I think it follows the basic spirit of it. I had seen the documentary like a long time ago, and I was like, "That's kind of weird and crazy." But the show, and it's like Mark Maron kills it.
Oh, he's so good.
Like, and as it progresses, he starts off very just kind of Mark Maron, very kind of just like angry,
and
salty,
then ends kind of Mark Miller.
ends up Mark Miller. He's a communist Superman by the end.
Yeah,
but he is like he gives like like honestly, I'm not just because I love his podcast and listen to him, but like I would say almost award worthy performance towards the end.
I would say he's
not
probably,
almost definitely.
I'd say he's probably the breakout star.
He's so good.
Like the just. Like, I love Allison Brie, and like so many of those women are great in the show, but he is probably like the, like not by a huge gap, but he's like the best.
Well, the thing
part of it,
the thing that really, I really started to be like, oh wow, was his character becomes like he's interesting, but he gets a lot more interesting as the show goes on. He plays like the kind of protective father, but he's also the asshole. And there's some other stuff, spoiler stuff that happens later on.
Yeah,
that's really well done. I know you love the Back to the Future stuff.
I did.
I was thinking of you immediately.
As soon as he started describing
his
movie, I was like, "Is this Back to the Future?"
Yeah. That, and I thought that was well done, but totally heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, but yeah, he's so great. I mean, but the whole cast, like Allison Brie was the only one I was really familiar with. But
the I forget her character's name, but the African American woman who was playing the food stamp.
Yes,
that's what's her name? An actual wrestler.
Oh, really?
She's the only one in the cast that's an actual wrestler, and I feel terrible because I'm blanking on all of her names.
Yes,
but she was
welfare queen, right?
Yeah,
that's her on the show.
Yeah, and then
she's a lot.
She
of
was
fun.
in the WWE.
Oh wow.
She had like big dreadlocks. She was in one of the Royal Rumbles. She's one of the few women to be in a Royal Rumble.
Okay.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of like little cameos. Like Brooke Hogan's in it.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh.
Hulk Hogan's daughter.
Yeah.
She is when they go to get the scouting location for where they're going to film it in the ballroom. The blonde with like the big poofy hair.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's Brooke Hogan.
Oh, okay. Joey Ryan, one of my favorite indie wrestlers, is in it. He plays the when they take what's her name to go see her first wrestling show, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's like a soap opera." The not the $1 Million Man, because that's
but it's clearly
but like that guy, that's Joey Ryan. He's the guy that has the dicplex.
Oh,
I think
shit.
I told you.
Yeah.
Like he flips people over with his dick.
Yeah, he was interesting just in his small amount of time.
Like,
no, but I liked his character.
And then he also he as a completely different character. Like, but the Joey Ryan is also one of the extras in the first live show that they do. Like he's one of the people in the audience.
Yeah, I liked
his
character was interesting.
And then in his first appearance, where he's a wrestler, the guy that he's going up against, who the girls go backstage to talk to, that's Alex Riley.
Okay, I'm thinking of him. Sorry, I was thinking him. Yeah.
So that's Alex Riley.
Okay,
who was a WWE wrestler.
And he was
like protege of the Miz for for like a year or so. He's actually from this area.
Oh.
He went to Robinson High School.
Crazy.
He's a couple years older than us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, Allison Brie, that's a crazy performance that she gives too.
Yes.
She is all over the place.
Yes.
Like, and I knew her.
She was in it to win it.
Yes. And I was obviously knew her from Community. Like I had watched, that show pretty religiously early on. And just fell in love with her, but on this like talk about like a spectrum of things that she gets to play with.
Yeah.
Physically, like, you know, there's moments in it where you can't fake it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, all the women did like actual wrestling training. They from what I heard, they don't really have stunt doubles.
Good, yeah, because I mean, it shows there's a whole thing where like they're working out off the turnbuckle. There's one move they're trying to get down. Yeah. They move really well. But yeah, she gets basically the whole thing to play with, like all over the place, and she is super.
There's a wrestling podcast that I listen to called Tights and Fights.
Nice.
It's great,
very
great
good.
show. They do a weekly recap of like the world in wrestling. But they are friends with the two women, the hairdressers. They were in the first live show that they did. They were the tag team. They were the ones that the girls talked
ladies?
into. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, who are actually like Glow on the documentary? There are characters that are two old women.
Oh, really?
Like they become old women, but then they become heavy metal people instead.
Oh, nice.
Later on.
Yeah, those two women,
Yes,
they're
they were
real
very
life
funny.
best friends.
Oh, perfect.
And they're friends with the people that produce Tights and Fights. So they had a special episode that was talking about the production. They were like, it was before it had been released, so they were like, we can't really talk too much about it, but like they talked about how they did like actual wrestling workshops. They worked with I forget which one. There's a Hispanic wrestler.
Guerrero?
Eddie. No, Eddie. Oh, why am I blanking on his name?
Because I know that
lied, cheat, and steal.
Yeah, Eddie Guerrero.
Okay, you did say Guerrero.
Yeah, because I was going to say because
they worked with one of his relative, like one of his uncles or brothers.
He is
like that.
the guy that did it in real life with Glow.
Yes.
Like, he was the guy that did it back when it was a show.
Yeah, he's in the documentary. Yeah, and in the production of the TV show, the Netflix show, they worked with one of his relatives to figure everything out. And then in the first episode or first and second episode, they have John Morrison from the WWE, or Johnny Mundo from Lucha Underground. He's the pretty boy that helps them learn the ropes for the first week or so.
Well, the thing that's great about the show too is it takes its time.
Yeah.
Like, it sets up season 2 really well. Like, it has to have a season 2. Like, you know,
I would be heartbroken if it didn't.
It has to, because the way it ends too.
Yeah.
And it ends like, I think every wrestling fan, like if you watch the show as a wrestling fan, the way it ends, I think any diehard wrestling fan will love the way it ends.
Yeah.
Because it ends like
agree.
any great wrestling match or show should. That's the best that's the most I'll give you.
It ends very similarly to not this year's but last year's Money in the Bank.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. So yeah, like I said, I didn't hate the show. I just was like, oh yeah, I'll finish it. And then I kind of got into it around like 4 or 5, and I just like blew through it. And I was actually really bummed out when I finished it, because I really loved the pace and how it went along.
I've been very like not in the mood to binge watch shows, mostly because of like I binged watched like half of Dragon Ball Z Kai, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I don't need to binge anymore. But like Glow, I think I ended up watching that entire show in a day, just because
it's quick.
It was
too.
that
like,
good.
It's not hour-long episodes.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
30.
Yeah, I only spent about 5 hours of my life watching.
Watch the documentary. Just be prepared that it is nothing from the TV show. Really, I mean, the atmosphere of it, and I think the basic, the idea of everything. And not, there are similar characters. There's a Cold War Russian type woman. The women who play like the older granny ladies are real life best friends, and they're interviewed together throughout it, which is nice. There is a couple things that are brutal as shit though. Like there is one thing that is like super disturbing, is they talk about the injuries and how like some of the mats they were landing on plywood, like they weren't actually like built correctly sometimes. Like but kind of just an amazing story, and it's kind of cool that it's like really getting out there now. Yeah, that people are getting to know more about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
I wonder if you can watch the actual show.
I think they talked about like it's a YouTube rabbit hole that you can fall down. Yeah. I cannot remember the name of the actress. I think the last name's Gilpin. I think, who plays the Southern Belle, like the foil to Allison
Right,
Brie's
right.
second lead. You know what I'm talking about, though.
I know
the
who
blonde.
you're talking about. Yeah,
She's fantastic as well. She was like, I'm talking to her husband. She's like, I'm doing the show called Glow. I've never heard of it. Like blah blah blah. It's probably just for like wrestling people. He's like, I watched every episode when it aired. Like her husband would watch it, and she said she fell down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Of doing research of it. It's super entertaining and crazy, and they
Yeah.
have the little rap that they do at the beginning of
Glow.
each thing. Yeah,
Glow. Yeah, we're Glow.
Yeah.
Glow.
Classic.
Nice.
Noise.
But yeah. Have I been doing anything? I haven't been doing anything. Shit. Anyway. Well, thanks.
This has been wrestling.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. But thanks again to Becky Cloonan for coming on the show and talking about like everything.
Yeah.
Like most of her body of work. Certainly the more recent things that she's got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Always a blast. Always
Yes.
a blast. And again, By Chance of Providence, comic book stores, Wednesday, July 26th, Volume 2 of Southern Cross, out now, along with Volume 1, of course.
It's a crazy one.
And keep an eye out for Punisher and Gotham Academy.
Yeah, pick up issue 13 so you can jump in the 14 because I highly recommend that issue.
Yeah, it's a nice standalone.
It is.
So, day in the life. Yeah, and play some Castlevania. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, this has been another Solomon Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Jake.
I'm Jake.
Shake.
I'm Shake.
Yeah, I'm Shake.
Shake.
Shonora?
Shake it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Fried chicken. This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.